So let me take it on an easy level as an entry level kind of thing, right? All right. So I've had this experience a couple of times, like you come home after a long, busy day and you ate something that gives you an upset stomach. All right. And you really feel sick. All right. Now there are different kinds of medicine you can take and all of that. But does the thought come to mind? All right, I'm going to offer this up to God. Yeah. I mean, you're not dying. Right? You feel really sick, but you're not dying, and it's not going on for 3 weeks or 3 months, right? It's just one day that you're going to have an upset stomach. Do you have the courage to offer that to God? I want to offer this suffering to God because I know that, maybe there's somebody much worse off than I am, and what I'm going through right now, I'd like it to be a prayer. Okay. So you're starting to get the hang of it. This is you might say the squire learning to be a knight, right? Right. So you haven't gotten on the horseback yet. You haven't gotten all the armor, but you've got something going. All right. The training is starting. So little by little, you begin to understand how suffering can once again be a little bell that goes off that says, "Are you ready to offer this? Are you ready to make a?" In other words, now it's not, Lord, I'm offering you this beautiful video that I just edited, and isn't this wonderful? And it's all for you. No, now you have this horrible body of ours, going through terrible pain, and it's not beautiful at all. And you still have the courage to say, Lord, all right, I accept this too, and I offer it to you. All right, so we're moving beyond the person with the feather in his cap to being the squire who is getting the horse out of the muddy hole, okay, and is beginning to develop courage and skill. And so, little by little, as you go through life, occasions emerge in which this can really change the way we see things. Right? When you start seeing relatives of yours, like you mentioned, some relatives who've died of cancer, when you go to the hospital and spend time with them, do you have the courage to pray for them? Do you have the courage to pray with them? Okay. Do you have the courage to engage the other relatives around the bedside in a moment of prayer? All right, already there too. The occasion is there, but everybody's, so embarrassed and so ashamed and so upset that they don't know what to do. So you say, let's say a Hail Mary, and then everybody is willing to join in. So the squire is now beginning to put on his armor, and maybe developing more courage. And then when it's your turn to be the person in the hospital bed, you know, then do you have the courage to say, I know something is going on and it's not good, but I accept this too, you know? Like a friend of mine that met on the trip to Bhutan was, he said, a very brash youth who gave not a thought to anything, and did many things that were very selfish. One night he's driving home top speed and his car goes off a bridge. And there he is. And there's nobody around. And it's late at night and all his bones are broken, you know. And he said, I had to change. That experience, I had to change. Either I was going to die or I was going to have to change. I couldn't go on as I had been. All right. So now the squire is really putting on his armor, is really putting on a helmet, right? And he's even getting his sword, all right? And he survived almost by miraculous intervention because somebody found him and got the police and got the ambulance and they took him to the hospital and they patched him up. It took a whole year of being patched up to get back, to normal. But his life had turned around, you see. So we're seeing the steps of having the courage to work with suffering. Now, what happens with spiritual suffering? That's another whole thing. And how many people go through anxiety, panic attacks, depression, and then, all kinds of inexplicable things. There's where you really, and of course, people who go through that are usually very lonely. All right. They don't have a strong community around them, and sometimes their own family contributes to the problem. What do you do? What do you do? Lord, I'm all alone in this and nobody cares at all. I feel like I want to kill myself. All right. I feel like I want to kill myself. And you say, Lord, show me the way. I don't know what's going on. Show me the way. Wow. And then now you're really seeing the person going into the very depths of suffering, and only God can lift you out, at that point. It's another good reason why take it step by step. It's another good reason why we teach faith, in simple steps before we get to the big steps, okay? Because it's really hard. The human mind and heart are not made to be clobbered. That, you know, it's, I mean, I've had friends who took their own lives. There was one fellow, I helped him 3 times. And he told me afterwards, if you hadn't been there, I would have done it then. And then finally, on the night when he finally did take his life, I was away, So it's not easy for me to live with that, right? Because he couldn't take it any longer. The depression and the bad things that were happening to him were too much, and he just gave up. But we know people like this. It's not unusual, and yet we still have to commit as much as possible as loving Christians to try to stay with people who are going through really tough stuff. All right. And to be their friends. Okay. So I would just urge our listeners to think about the people they know who, are maybe very unattractive and say crazy things and are not easy to get along with, but at least one person in each one of our lives may be like that. But let's try to do something for that person. You can have all the parties you want with your best friends, but do something for that one person who really needs a friend, and you'll be a squire starting to become a knight.